I'd like to say a big thank you to Clarence and, of course, Mayor Chris Coleman, who really got us thinking differently about cities and about ways that Google can do more and listen a bit better to try and figure out how we can make some big advancements in this space. I'd also like to thank Mayor Nutter. About 2 years ago, we were in Philadelphia for a Pennsylvania Get Your Business Online event. And had a great conversation with him that really threw us into the space, the cities, the county government space, and really realizing that, we have a lot of value to add here, but we really need to make sure that we're having the right conversations and engaging with the right people to make things happen. So I have the enviable position, or the great position of being between everybody and lunch, so I will keep it brief. I'm the daughter of Monica Vernon, who's a Cedar Rapids City Council member and a lifelong advocate for cities to be places where people can raise families, have great quality of life, get the most basic of services. So I am, a true believer in cities being the laboratories of innovation, and I'm very lucky that I have found this role at Google, where we think about those types of challenges every single day. And before I jump into kind of what our team does, I'm going to talk a little bit about our big idea. So how many people in this room have used Google Search before? Right? So pretty much all of us have used Google Search. And about 15 years ago, it didn't exist. So it was just 2 Stanford PhD students sitting on campus, probably eating something along the lines of ramen noodles, talking about a challenge that they had on campus. There's this new thing called the internet. How do I find the information that I'm looking for? And how can I make sure that my fellow classmates can also find this information? So Larry and Sergey decided, that's a great idea. We don't know if it's a big idea yet, but it's an idea, and it's an idea worth pursuing. So they got together, they found another woman who's also one of our very important founders, Susan, and they set up in her garage. And they started to tinker and to get some servers and to really make this service available to Stanford. And they started out with a very basic mission of how do we organize information and how do we make that information accessible. Very basic, right? Very strong core mission. And over time, they realized this isn't just a challenge that Stanford University faces. This is actually a challenge that most of the internet faces, right? Back in the day, you had hundreds of thousands at that time, truly in the thousands. Now it's in the billions, if not approaching trillions, websites and web pages and photos and videos. How do we make that universally accessible and organized around the world? So it turned from an idea in just 15 years that 2 people had, studying together at a university, into a company that really does touch the lives of so many people in such a short amount of time. So that was really our core big idea and what got us off the ground. But again, it started at a very basic, truly basic level. In my work with the Civic Innovation team, which is led by Ginny Hunt, Jenny Backus, our core folks in this space, we're really just getting started in terms of how Google works directly with cities and how we're trying to support and enable communities, with our technologies. We think about things in the 3 C's: cities, communities, citizens. What can we do locally? We have a great relationship with the city of Chicago. We have an office here. A lot of people don't know that. A great office in Ann Arbor, Michigan, very close by. What are we doing for communities? What are we doing for neighborhoods? How are we making maps, better for people to be able to find walking routes if that's what they're looking for? And it's, sometimes if you don't know about the path right down the street or you're new to an area, really important for livability. And also citizens who use our searches. Everyone raises their hand. Sure, I've used Google before. Actually, 97% of people look for local goods and services online. So the local coffee shop, balloon vendor, sending flowers to my grandma. It really is a local tool. 1 in every 5 searches ends up being about something local. You think about when you're on the road, the types of information you're looking for, yet 58% of America's businesses don't have websites. So they're sort of missing out on being in the yellow pages of today's world. And I want to talk a bit about some of the work that I get to do when I visit cities. So last year, we announced a prize called eCities, where we recognized the strongest online business communities in each state. Sometimes these cities end up being invisible because it's brick and mortar stores, but it's also a lot of people doing work out of their home offices, for example. So I got to visit Minnetonka, Minnesota, and Bainbridge Island, Washington, and places that you might not expect to be e-cities. Of course, Austin, Texas, and Atlanta, Georgia. And one of my favorite visits was in Lincoln, Nebraska, at this place called Licorice International. There are these two women, Ardith and Elizabeth, who are known as the Licorice Ladies in their community. And believe it or not, they have the largest selection of licorice in the United States, right downtown Lincoln, Nebraska. And they make most of their money by shipping their licorice around the country and around the world. So these two women have a passion for licorice. They love licorice, and they came back from a trip to New York City and said, we can't find licorice here. You know, we have to order it. And then when they went online and started to try and figure out how they could place these orders, they realized they'd have to go to 12 different sites to get the licorice that they want. So they started just the two of them in their homes. They had all of their inventory in their basement. Grew so big, they started doing some advertising online and great word of mouth in the licorice community. They got a storefront. I know, right? It's a whole world that I didn't know about. They got a storefront downtown Lincoln, Nebraska, and they, of course, sell licorice out of the front of their store, and they have the fulfillment center in the back. You know, creates jobs, more retail shop for the downtown, supports the local coffee shop. I mean, I was blown away by how beautiful downtown Lincoln is. I'm from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, similar kind of setup, and really was impressed with what they did. But I was also impressed by these licorice ladies who really just had an idea. They had a passion for a product. They couldn't find that in the way that they wanted to locally. Buying it online was too cumbersome, so they solved that problem, and in the process have grown their small business, have hired employees, have contributed to their local economies, and really helped their community become a better place to be. So I think, big ideas, Google, big ideas, Licorice International, it really is the same. And I'm going to leave you guys with a quick video, just a short video, on how we look still today at ideas at Google. So we have what we call BHAGs, big, hairy, audacious goals. And every year we challenge ourselves, both personally and professionally, to come up with a BHAG for the work that we're doing. We also have what we call 20% projects. I don't know if anybody is familiar with that concept, where 20 engineers and non-engineers, I'm a non-engineer, believe it or not, can spend 20% of your week or one day a week working on a project that's not directly related to what you're doing. So if I'm an engineer working on Google Search, I could spend 20% of my time working on our crisis response maps for the natural disaster in Japan, if that's what I was passionate about. Or you could work on a product like Gmail. I don't know if anyone ever has used Gmail in here. It's our Google Mail system. That was one person saying, hey, I think we might be able to do email in a different way. And so he took his 20% project just by himself, and he started to think about this problem. And then he recruited a couple of friends to also spend 20% of their time thinking about this problem. And the next thing you know, they have a viable product that provides free email access for anybody that would like to sign up. And really, in a relatively short amount of time, has had a huge impact. So we still, 15 years ago, started Google Search, but still every day we challenge ourselves. We challenge our peers, and we challenge, our founders challenge us to come up with the next idea, and it really just starts with a single person. So if we could roll the video, that'd be great.
The actual moonshot is wonderful, inspirational, poetic, beautiful, involved great technical challenges, genuine heroism. It brought the world together. But think about the Polynesian islander on the dugout canoe, deciding one day they were going to go that way. No one had ever been that way before. No one even knew if there was anything that way before. It was amazing. and it changed the world.
People can set their minds to magical, seemingly impossible ideas, and then through science and technology, bring them to reality. And that then sets other people on fire, that other things that look impossible might be accomplishable.
Galileo is such a hero, in thinking big, and what he represents to me is both curiosity and wonder that humanity had, that he had, that pushed him and drove himself to invent and work on the first telescopes that allowed us to see the moon, and here we are.
These aviation pioneers were figuring it out as they went. No one really knew how to build an airplane, right? No one knew how to fly an airplane. It was amazing and crazy and wonderful, and they wanted to explore.
Many years ago, the great British explorer George Mallory, who was to die on Mount Everest, was asked why did he want to climb it. He said, because it is there.
There's so many challenges in the world, and you can feel daunted by that, and sort of oppressed by that, or you kind of say, how might we think differently about this?
Everyone else in the world is working on that next 10%. If you can be the one that delivers that 10 times improvement, you have a chance to really change things.
If you want cars to run at 50 miles per gallon, fine, you can retool your car a little bit. But if I tell you it has to run on a gallon of gas for 500 miles, you have to start over.
You need a lot of courage in this work, and you need a lot of persistence. One of the things that's really critical is not only having the courage to keep trying every day or thinking big, even if you don't really 100% believe it's possible, like you might think this might be possible, have the courage to try. That's how the greatest things have happened.
You don't spend your time being bothered that you can't teleport from here to Japan, because there's a part of you that thinks it's impossible. Moonshot thinking is choosing to be bothered by that.
We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Humanity's progress has been a series of amazing, audacious things, from the very small and personal up to the great, big, and grand. And we are a species of moonshots. And to me, that's like the really amazing, poetic, and inspirational thing.
I think our ambitions are a glass ceiling on what we can accomplish.
When you find your passion, you're unstoppable. You can make amazing things happen. It's been true through all of history.
I believe in the human spirit, and I believe that there are always going to be crazy people who will get out of bed one morning and say, you know what? I think I can build a space elevator, and let's go and do it. But I think that if we become afraid to take these great big risks, we stop inspiring people. We stop achieving things. And the biggest nightmare scenario is that we won't have what it takes to solve the really big challenges.
When Kennedy said that we would put a man on the moon, it's about the fact that he said, we don't know how to do this yet, and we're gonna do it anyway. And that sends chills up everybody's spine. Because if that happens, what couldn't we do?
The great part about Google is we have our team, our Google X team, and this is their entire job, is to think in terms of moonshots. What's not a 10% change over time, but what's a huge 10x, so what we call 10x thinking. So what I want to leave you guys with is think about in your cities, in your communities, in your neighborhoods, what is a moonshot thought? What does 10x, not 10% change, not marginal change, what does 10x change look like? What is your big idea? Thank you very much.